Hello, welcome to today's live. So today I'd like to talk to you about trauma healing, and what it looks like to actually heal trauma. And this ties in very nicely with some encouragement that we're getting from external sources, being the fluctuations in the Schumann Resonance and I think it's a solar flare. Not a solar flare, a solar eclipse. Joanna, was it a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse? Solar eclipse. So we've got some interesting external influences to bring up our trauma, and we're going to talk about what this looks like and some themes and some patterns that I've noticed. So I work with a lot of people, so I get to assess. I have sort of like little contact nodes all over the world with different people in different areas of their life, and then all of a sudden a theme appears, there's a commonality, and it usually affects me and a lot of people close to me and a lot of my clients, especially those that are more energy sensitive, which is actually most of them. So currently, what have we got happening? So very recently there was a brief increase in the Schumann resonance. So this is the average for this resonance is about 7.62 hertz. There's some frequencies, like on YouTube. If you go on YouTube and you type Schumann resonance, there'll be like binaural beats and other types of frequency music that are at this frequency, and this is the average resonant frequency that the Earth has, and this is the normal frequency that we live in and that makes us feel grounded and safe and healthy. And this is one of the big benefits of earthing. You're getting this resonant frequency directly in your body, but it's not just about it coming directly from the Earth. It's the frequency that's resonating between the Earth's surface and the ionosphere, which is like imagine it's sort of like the Earth has got like a big bubble around it, and it's this bubble that contains this resonant frequency. And recently this has spiked up a little bit, so we had a bit of a spike up, and during this time you will notice that you get flare-ups of seemingly random things, and these are things that are being called to be healed. So you might have flare-ups of certain symptoms, you might have increased emotions, you might find that you're having arguments, you might find that you're having a bit of a hard time. It feels like lots of stuff is happening emotionally, energetically, and also very likely with your health. So for me, this has looked like I have damaged my wrist. So it's uncanny. I walk around outside and this isn't a very common injury. I've literally seen probably a dozen people that have the same injury as me. And it's uncanny that would happen all at the same time, and it's because of this external influence. So that's how it's affected me. I've noticed that there's also a pattern or a theme of the reintegration of disgust energy. So disgust is emotion that so Joanna just did because Joanna's having an integration there with that. I'm having an integration with that too. So disgust is an emotion that we all have. All humans have an intrinsic emotion of disgust. And the thing about emotion, so now we're going to start talking a little bit about trauma. So the thing about this emotion is it's responsible for, it serves us in many ways, but for many different reasons. Sometimes we have to suppress or repress this emotion to survive. So for example, say you were raised in an environment that was disgusting to you. You'd have to suppress this disgust, because if you would ever express this disgust and voice protest about it, you would be rejected, you would be shunned, you'd be attacked. So you repress that part of yourself. And we have disgust for many different reasons. So there's this sort of visceral level of disgust, which is for our physiological surroundings, like our physical surroundings. So dirt, hygiene. So hygiene really comes into it, being clean. Foul smells, things that are generally considered gross, so like sick and blood and vomit and poo and all these things that have this connotation of being dirty, they evoke this emotion of disgust within us. So if this emotion isn't being channeled correctly, it can manifest as something else, and this is something else that's going to be different to everybody. So disgust, if you think, is very much connected to... So think about the reaction of being disgusted. You would you would feel like you want to gag, you'd feel like you're going to throw up, you would want to move yourself out of that environment. So there's a fight-flight element to this. So there's more of a flight dynamic. You don't really fight disgust. I mean, you can. That's what cleaning is, right? Cleaning is fighting disgust. But more often than not, you'll just try to get out of that environment because you find it repulsive and you want to get away from that. So when you're forced to stay in an environment that you find disgusting, and at the minute we're just looking at the physical, but there's also environments that are emotionally disgusting. So something that I was experiencing myself last night. So I couldn't sleep last night at all. I was up till like 1:30, 2 o'clock. And I was processing a lot of this disgust. I actually had to go and sit in front of the toilet. And I felt like I was going to vomit. And it was bringing up all of the disgusting behaviours that I've witnessed of different influential people in my life. So different family members, different friends, different situations that I've been in. And because of my situation at that time, I had to tolerate that. I had to put up with it. And this was suppressed and manifested as a physical symptom inside my body. As this kind of like, I was experiencing it. So I use a technique called SRT, Somatic Release Technique, which is where you focus on the physical, the visceral sensations inside your body. So I could feel like bile, like bubbling up in my stomach. I could feel this like repulsion, this desire to vomit. But then also, as I was staying with this sensation, I could feel my stomach acid was really strong. So this metaphorically is like the personal power. So instead of running away from this situation, I'm not actually there anymore. So my body was either going to like flee from this, so sort of throw it up, evacuate it, or it was going to fight it. It was going to process it and digest it, and that's what my body decided to do. So I could feel my stomach acid basically corroding all of this stuff, and I was just speaking in a very powerful way how disgusted I was with the behaviours and the environments that I'd been in, and it was a very interesting experience. And this disgust has to channel some way. We all have access to disgust. So if you're out of touch with your disgust energy, it's manifesting somewhere. And some good indicators, good clues that you aren't channeling this disgust properly in a healthy way could look like poor manifestations of hygiene. So something that's been coming up for me recently around disgust was obviously having this on my arm, it's harder to keep myself clean. It's really annoying to have a bath. It's really annoying to have a shower. So I was kind of like putting it off. And previously I could go for I almost feel embarrassed to say how long I could go without cleaning myself. And that disgust wouldn't come up because I was in an environment where I had to repress and suppress my disgust. Whereas now I don't have to. And as I was very vocally and viscerally expressing this disgust, so sitting there physically feeling disgusted in my body, feeling that feeling of wanting to vomit, I was processing this, and I realized like I didn't like the way that I smelled, and I just hadn't had a shower for like one day, and it was really disgusting me, and I hadn't brushed my teeth, and I really felt this like strong desire to floss. So it's like this disgust energy that was being repressed or suppressed before, that manifested in like poor hygiene. And for me, it was manifesting as physical symptoms. So this like feeling of that disgust feeling in the belly. So just generally sort of feeling sick all of the time and not really knowing why. And as I began to process that, the feeling in the belly went away. So that energy, instead of channeling as a physical symptom, moved up and began to channel and express as a new behavior. So this emotion that was being somaticized was now channeling as a behavior instead. So this disgust was channeling into, I'm disgusted with how I smell and how my teeth feel. I feel for me, I feel disgust in my teeth, in my gums. I feel like when I feel really disgusted, I get this somatic sensation in my gums, like there's stuff crawling inside my gums, and it feels really like disgusting, and I want to just like scrub my teeth out. So I brushed my teeth really well, I did a really nice flossing, and I really like this feeling that I have in my teeth. It feels really nice. They feel really clean and shiny, and I feel like a lot of pride and a lot of... I mean, this is what disgust is about. You clean things so that you can present them to others, and you receive like approval from them because you don't evoke the disgust emotion within them. So it's really nice to be able to smile and feel really prideful about how clean I know my mouth is, and that I smell quite good and I've looked after myself. So hygiene is a really important one here. That's a really good clue. But disgust can also manifest in other ways. So if you have a situation where you aren't channeling this disgust appropriately, as I said, it has to channel somewhere. Sometimes it will channel through as a somatic behavior, but other times it might come out as a belief pattern or a behavior pattern that you have. So if your body has no way to channel its disgust, it will probably channel in a way that was deemed appropriate by your caregivers when you were younger. So if your caregivers ever expressed their disgust about you in some way, say they were disgusted with the way you looked, or the shape of your body, or the way that you dressed, then that is how you will channel that energy. So you will channel this feeling of disgust as self-criticism and be disgusted with how your body looks, or how you hate your sense of style, or maybe they were disgusted with your hair or your teeth. That is how that will manifest. That's how that energy will manifest, because that's a safe way that we have to channel it. So what's really helpful, we're really talking on disgust now because this is the energy that I've seen coming up. But you can apply this to all different emotions. So every single human has access to every single emotion. And if you're consciously unaware of this energy and how it's expressing in your life, be it disgust, be it two of the most common ones, anger and fear. If you're not consciously aware of how these energies are channeling, then they're either channeling somatically through a symptom, so like a physical expression inside your body, or they're channeling as a subconscious behavior pattern or a belief that you hold. So the energy is always there. It's always there. And this is why SRT and shadow work, which are the combination of strategies that I use to heal this trauma, are so important, because it's all about awareness. The energy is already there. You just have to figure out where it is, find it, and begin to understand it and integrate it. So the process of integration is about, again, it's awareness. It's bringing it from, so excuse the slightly disabled hand. So you've got the conscious up here, and then below that you've got the subconscious, and then below that, even a step further, you've got the somatic. So the integration process is about bringing these things back into the conscious so that you're aware of them, and integrating these behaviors as conscious behaviors in your life. So in my example with the disgust, it was taking this disgust that I was feeling in my belly and this nausea and this sickness, and now channeling it into better dental hygiene, better personal hygiene, more cleanliness around the house. And this is an issue that Joanna has brought to my attention many times before, and I could never see it. I would always just say, well, we just have different levels of disgust, and you just see things as dirty before I see them. But this isn't actually the case. The situation in this case was, I was suppressing my emotion of disgust because it wasn't safe for me to do that when I was younger, to express that level of disgust that I would have experienced. So what do we do about this? So the thing about trauma is, it's kind of like you have this groove, you have this pattern, you have a way that you behave, you have a belief, you have something, and it's always going to be there. Healing trauma is about becoming so aware of these natural patterns that we have, these behaviors that we fall into, these beliefs that we fall into. It's about becoming so aware of them that as soon as you begin to do them, so you're acting in alignment with a certain belief. So with this disgust, so I would notice I am starting to smell. So I would become aware that I don't like how I smell, and I'll be like, okay, this is disgust. And I would know that my previous trauma pattern was suppress this disgust and get a physical symptom. And that's what I will naturally fall into if I don't take action. I don't take care of this consciously. So as I become aware of this, and as I become aware of this energy, this emotion, and I'm able to identify it, I can then channel this. So I can take a conscious action. So your trauma is always going to be there. You're always going to have this survival mechanism that you used when you were younger. And that survival pattern is great. It's there because it works. it's what kept you safe when you were younger, but it isn't serving you anymore. Otherwise, it wouldn't be coming to your awareness. So every time you become aware of this, it's a choice. And this is a concept that I think is really important when we're talking about trauma, because I get the idea from a lot of people when they're trying to heal trauma, and a lot of other practitioners, that trauma's kind of like this. You've got this backpack of this bad stuff that happened to you, and you just carry it around with you everywhere, and it doesn't really have an effect on your life. You're just carrying it around sort of on your back. And that's not true. Every single trauma that you have is reflected directly in beliefs that you have, the way that you conduct yourself and the way that you behave, the thoughts that you think and the things that you do. So this trauma isn't this thing that you're carrying around that has no effect on you. Every single trauma that you have is demonstrating in your behavior, the way that you think and the way that you behave every second of every day. So this is why awareness is so important. If we can become more aware of what you're thinking and how you're feeling and what you're doing and what you believe, we can understand more about these trauma patterns. And once we become aware, we make a choice. So as soon as you become aware that you've fallen back into one of your patterns, and this sounds stupidly simple and also terrifyingly difficult, but you just have to become aware that you've gone back into your pattern and then choose not to do that. So when I become aware that I'm suppressing disgust and I can feel it manifesting as a physical symptom, the solution there isn't do some trauma healing technique or go and do this or go and do that. It's choose. Choose to identify and say, I'm now aware that this energy is channeling as a physical symptom, and I have other methods that I can use to channel this in a more healthy way, and to choose the healthy way. So instead of just not doing anything about that feeling of disgust and letting it manifest as a physical symptom of nausea and sickness in my belly, I'll become aware of it and say, actually, I'm revolted with myself. I stink. I need to brush my teeth. I don't think I'm in a very clean environment right now. Change that behavior, modify that behavior, change that decision, behave a different way, and now you're channeling that energy. So instead of that energy manifesting physically as a symptom or subconsciously as some kind of behavioral pattern that you have, you're consciously choosing a new way to be. And that's what trauma healing is about. The trauma never goes away. We just get really good at identifying when you fall into that trauma pattern and choosing not to fall into that pattern. But this is the thing about awareness. Sometimes, and this happened to me recently, when I feel overwhelmed, my instinct is to self-soothe, and to do this I use video games. And previously this has been very much an addictive behavior for me. But I have a new awareness around this, so I can see when I'm feeling overwhelmed. And if I'm feeling overwhelmed and I feel like I have the space and I'm supported and I have the resources and the awareness and the consciousness to be able to process this overwhelm, I have tools and techniques that I can choose to use to go into that and process it. And sometimes I'm not well resourced enough. And in that case, I'll go and play video games for a few hours, and it helps me to digest that. That's my coping mechanism. That's my way to self-soothe. But it becomes less of a subconscious behavioral pattern that I just fall into and I have no control over. And it's more of a tool that I have in my toolbox that I know that I can use when I need it. And I become aware that when I am doing this, so when I am playing video games, it's very likely that I am actually feeling overwhelmed. So it's all about awareness and it's all about choice. So that's it for the trauma talk today. We have one other astrological event happening. So we have an eclipse happening, solar eclipse. So when we're talking about an eclipse, let's think about it metaphorically. So it's a solar eclipse. So what's happening is the moon is basically covering the sun. So the sun metaphorically represents our awareness. So this is our ego. This is our consciousness. This is so we did the consciousness up here, and then we've got the subconscious and the somatic. So the sun represents the consciousness, and the moon represents the things that we're not aware of, obviously, because it's dark. So it represents the shadow. It represents the subconscious. It represents the somatic. So what's happening when we have an eclipse is we're getting this brightness, this consciousness up here, and we're having the darkness come in front of it. So we get to really become aware of what's happening subconsciously for a very brief time, and then it comes back down. So this is why this causes a lot a lot of like a stir up. It can cause physical symptoms. It can cause falling back into trauma patterns. It can cause changes in behaviors. It can cause you like not to be able to sleep. It can make you crave different types of foods. And this is because it's bringing suppressed and somatic subconscious parts of you up to the surface so they can be reintegrated and healed. Same kind of thing happens on the full moon as well. So if you think about the full moon, the moon is dark. In a full moon, the sun is shining so brightly on the moon that you can see it all. So you'll become very much more aware of your shadow. So metaphorically, you can see that this is what a full moon and what an eclipse represents. It's bringing this subconscious stuff up to the surface so that it can be reintegrated and it can be healed. So that's everything from me today. Hope you found that interesting. Hope you found that helpful. Let me know if you've had a crazy couple of days. So this is probably going to last for another maybe 2 days. It usually lasts 2 or 3 days before and after the main events. We had the alterations in the Schumann Resonance a couple of days ago, and we have the eclipse today. So you're probably going to still be feeling this for another couple of days yet. So let me know what's happening. How are you feeling? Are you having any random symptoms flaring up? Is it affecting your behavior? Are you seeing that you're being faced with certain emotions? Let me know if you try to do some shadow work and you can become aware of this theme of disgust that I've been experiencing with myself and with many of the people that I talk to. Let me know what's coming up for you. It's really helpful for me, helps me help other people, and I'm also genuinely interested to know. It really helps to further my understanding of what's happening around these different types of events in these times. So please, I really would be interested. Let me know what's going on in your life. Let me know how this has been affecting you. So that's everything for me today. I'll see you soon. Have a lovely day, and try not to get too dysregulated by everything that's happening, but have a lovely day. I'll see you soon. Ciao.